I would love to know in the chat what area in your home is the most cluttered and what area of your home gives you the most persistent clutter challenge. Homeschool book clutter, basement, the flat dining room table. Yes, we are going to address those horizontal surfaces. Oh, kids' bedrooms, especially boys, personal stuff. The guest room has become a junk drawer room. Yes, a shop or garage. Your desk, the area between your bed and the bookcase. Now, this is the practical decluttering workshop. So let's talk about what it means to be practical when it comes to decluttering. Practical decluttering takes our reality into account. Practical is not about achieving some kind of visual effect or decorating. It's not for decorating purposes. Practical decluttering is targeted, specific decluttering of areas so that your home is more effective, so that your home is more functional. You are decluttering so that you can get more done at home and so that things are where you can find them. So for the people in the chat saying that their garage is their biggest clutter problem, like that's not what we are talking about today. Because we are not talking about wishful thinking decluttering, where we're going to have all of our entire lives completely in order with nothing hanging over our heads. But you can tell me in the chat if I'm wrong about this, but I am going to guess that how much clutter is in your garage is not actually a day-to-day problem in what you actually have to do in the day. It's only a problem because it's hanging over your head as it shouldn't be that way. It should be all put together. It's one of the areas that has the most clutter, the most things to deal with, but it actually is out of the way. Same with the guest bedroom. That's not a functional, practical problem unless you need overnight guests to stay in it. Now, the dining room table, on the other hand, that is practical. All right, paths to the car and pantry are in the garage that you need to deal with. All right, I'll grant you that then. But we're talking about practical to make your everyday life manageable, doable, more effective. We are talking about getting the biggest bang for your buck decluttering. We're not talking about getting to the point where everything in your life is decluttered. It's doing its job holding the stuff, and even if it's not the most effective way, even if there is stuff you could get rid of there and it could be organized better, like whatever, it's actually fulfilling its job being a storage area. And what we need to deal with first are the actual living spaces where it's not just that the homeschool books are everywhere. It's that we also need to be able to find those homeschool books the next day. So there's the space use element of decluttering. And there's also the putting things in their home so that when you need them again, you know where to get them and they'll be there. The console entry table, that's the kind of thing we're going to talk about today for sure. So we are talking today about practical decluttering for family life. This workshop here about practical decluttering for family life is for you if you have more stuff than you know what to do with. This is just the reality. If no matter how hard you try, your house just feels cluttered. If you've never felt like you've seen a light at the end of the tunnel called decluttering, then this workshop is for you. We're going to talk about those feelings versus the reality and our expectations and our duties and how all of those work together so that we can give up the pressure and stress piece and make actual progress and feel good about the progress. Because what we are about here at Simply Convivial is learning to love what must be done. So at the end of this workshop, what I hope you can see is that you can actually enjoy the ongoing, persistent efforts that you give daily to decluttering in your home. You're decluttering every day, not because you're bad at it, but actually because you're good at it. But you're decluttering every day because you're actually managing your family's resources wisely. So even if when you declutter, it feels like right away everything comes right back out and it's like it was just a waste of time, that's an interpretation, it's a story, it's a feeling that you have that is wrong that we're going to address during this workshop. We've got a lot going on in our house right now. It's a different phase of life than the intense, like everyone's 10 and under and we're homeschooling phase. That is one kind of intense period of life that involves a lot of stuff. And I very much remember that phase of life. Now we have teenagers. We only have 3 of our 5 kids at home now, but bigger kids come with bigger stuff and more of their own stuff and their own spending money and more stuff coming in the house. A little bit more negotiation that has to happen. It's just different. But it doesn't change the fact that decluttering has to be an ongoing thing. It just, how we have to approach it changes. Plus, we regularly extend hospitality. We are currently living in a rental. It's small. It's about half the size of the house that we moved from when we lived in Washington State. We moved to Idaho, and our rental is half the size of what we were used to before. It's still not teeny tiny, especially since we're kicking kids out of the house at this point. We're not growing our family anymore. We're shrinking our family. But it's less than is comfortable. So here we are. We thought we would be in this rental for maybe a year, and we just passed year 3. And so here we are, and we are working at living a fruitful life, a life where we do things that matter, where our time and attention and energy, including our emotional energy, is directed where it should be, without being wasted, dissipated on things that don't matter as much, which includes having things stay clean. That is a wrong goal that is easy to adopt, and it's not the point. The point is not to clean things so that they stay clean. The point is to be living our fruitful and productive life, taking care of what needs to be taken care of as we go. The home is just a stage that is meant to facilitate the action of life, living, learning, loving, those kind of things, laughing. Now it sounds like a plaque. I love to help women become more effective homemakers. And toward that end, I do run a community called Convivial Circle. Lots of our members are here today. It's fun to see those familiar names. I also have 2 podcasts. The Simply Convivial podcast, the one that says Repent, Rejoice, Repeat, where I give short pep talks for homemaking and homeschooling. And then the Simplified Organization, Learn to Love What Must Be Done podcast is interviews with other moms sharing things they are learning and doing and applying in their own lives. I also have 3 books. How to Use a Planner Without Wasting Time is super short, as it should be. And then the Convivial Homeschool. And then my latest book is Simplified Organization, Learn to Love What Must Be Done. And that has 6 homemaking skills that everyone can put into place and get some more traction going. Just the basics, but it is all about starting with your attitude and that story you're telling yourself about your life rather than starting with the stuff. The attitude is the real crux of the matter. And so whatever we do, we have to be addressing our attitude, including our attitude about clutter. What is clutter? Before we can declutter, we have to know what clutter is. We have to properly identify clutter because it turns out that clutter is not just other people's stuff. Clutter is anything that does not have a home. Clutter, it could be trash laying on the floor, under the couch, in the couch cushion. The very first thing I like to do if I'm taking 10 minutes to declutter is start with trash because I know where that goes. That's an easy win. Start with the easy wins. Don't start where it's hard. Start where it's easy. We're all better off if the trash actually goes in the trash can, and we're not going to spend our time getting all whizzed up about why the trash isn't in the trash bin. We're just going to be grateful that there was something quick and easy to get started with. So clutter is trash anywhere outside of a trash can. Clutter could be groceries that need to be put away. Sometimes it comes in from the car or in from off the front step, and then it's just there in that front entryway. But until it's all the way in its home in the pantry, it's clutter because it's not where it belongs. Clutter can be school books that are still laying out, even if it's after dinner. Clutter can be bobby pins removed midday and just laying on the windowsill. These are my real life. I looked around like, all right, what clutter we've got around here? We had bobby pins laying around. They don't belong on the windowsill. But I know how that happened. And I know that it's not just my daughter, it's also me that does that. And in the other kind of clutter, and I think this is the kind that we usually have the most problem with processing or dealing with. This is the kind of clutter that we allow to become emotional issues. Is the great find at the thrift store or the gift that we were given, the thing that we don't know where it goes. It's just here, and it's not like groceries on the living room floor or bobby pins on the windowsill. It's just a thing that's not trash, but also not useful or not necessary, and we aren't really sure where it belongs. Those are the real decluttering tricks, the challenges, the things that different people will try to give easy answers for. You could go all minimalist and say, well, if it's not useful and if you don't absolutely adore it, you have to get rid of it. This life is more complicated than that. We have to think through things and make our own decisions based on our own particular circumstances. And other people's easy rules is not actually going to make our life easier. So just stop thinking that it will if you just did it. You might be not listening to that advice because it doesn't actually fit your life. So clutter is not just other people's stuff that I wish wasn't in the house. Belonging to someone else doesn't automatically make it clutter. Clutter is not stuff that I do own that I wish I didn't. Sometimes we need to own things that we don't necessarily love. This is real life. So it's not just like a name you can call stuff. And clutter is not all of the things past a certain threshold. This is the kind of thing with more of the minimalist decluttering advice where it's, okay, you should only own 5 shirts and anything above 5 shirts is clutter. Who says who? Says who? Put that into books and anything above 20 books is clutter? No way. No way, you're insane. No one who can legitimately tell you that you should only own a certain amount of stuff. You actually have to actually be a grown-up and the manager of your own home and make those decisions for yourself with your husband, based on your space and your circumstances and what your family is called to do. Sure, the less you have, the easier it is to take care of. Totally true. But we aren't always called to do what's easy. So just because it would be easier to own nothing doesn't mean that owning nothing is the goal. We are responsible for using the resources that we have wisely, and the more that is given, the more that is required. But we want to be turning a profit on as much as possible. We don't want to be living a bare minimum life. And we don't want to be focusing on making it easy for ourselves. We actually want to focus on figuring out what God has called us to do, and then doing that with all our might, and maybe even all our time. And recognizing that's a good thing, that we can take satisfaction in. So then, once we've identified clutter, we can declutter by putting things in their proper place. That's what it is to declutter. It's that simple. Decluttering does not just mean getting rid of stuff. Decluttering means putting things in their proper place. That means it has to have a proper place, and it might be getting rid of it because maybe the proper place, like I said, for the proper place for the trash is the trash bin. So if you declutter trash, you're putting it in the trash bin. Decluttering is an ongoing. Decluttering is not a project that is once and done, where you have a certain amount of work to do and a certain goal to reach. And then once you've achieved that goal and have decluttered your house, then you live completely differently. Then your life is easy. Then everything is amazing. That is not the way it works for families. With children who require stuff, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's stuff that comes with raising children, and the stuff changes. Even if we're just talking about the seasonal clothes swap and kids outgrowing their clothes, and they need different clothes or new clothes and new sizes, but you want to save clothes for the next kid on down, but it's going to be a while. Like, you have to manage those resources, and the resources is stuff. And stuff is not a bad word. It's just something that we have to manage, that we have to be in charge of, and we can be in charge of it and make judgment calls of our own. And it doesn't matter what other people would think of our judgment calls with our stuff in our situation. When we are managing a home that is full of an active, growing family, we have to acknowledge that managing the stuff is a part of that job. There's going to be iteration in what kind of stuff you have and need. I thought we would need this, but then it turns out that we didn't, or that hobby idea didn't work out, but I wanted to give it a shot. And we're trying to learn and grow. And not everything is going to be a slam dunk right out of the box. And our goal in raising a family is not pure efficiency. It's effectiveness. And what we're trying to be effective with is serving God. And God tells us what his priorities are: to love mercy, walk humbly with our God, do good, love mercy, walk humbly with our God. And the stuff is resources where we're trying to do that. And our goal in raising our children is to raise them up into wise, godly adults, and then launch them out into the world to do it themselves and multiply. Exponential growth is the ultimate goal, not just making our own little dollhouse set up just the way we like it. Our goal is to launch those children and have them be functioning adults that then go do the same thing, serve God the way that God has called them. And they are equipped and ready to do that. So we cannot make this stuff the focus. If we make the stuff the thing that we think will change everything and put our focus there, whether it's collecting all the right stuff, having all the exact right books and all the whatever, all the right food, we can focus on accumulating and buying all the right things and be focused on stuff in that way. And we can also be focused on stuff where getting rid of it is the focus. Both of those approaches focus on stuff as the linchpin that will change everything. Instead, we need to have our eyes on the real goals that God has called us to and see the resources that He has blessed us with as tools in that project. The stuff is just tangential. It's not a big enough deal to feel guilty and stressed over. Just keep plowing through and don't get sidetracked by the sidelines. Let's talk about 3 strategies that we can use to constantly declutter in a family life, because constant decluttering is what we need to be doing. Because there's always going to be more stuff coming in, whether that's clothes at the next size that the kids need, and then we have the clothes they grew out of that we have to figure out the right thing to do with, sports stuff, hobby stuff, homeschooling stuff, all kinds of tools and resources for learning and growing people. Managing stuff, decluttering is one step. It's one part of managing the stuff. If we declutter most days, then we will be managing that stuff as we move along. And we cannot let it become the one thing. And we can also be sure that the clutter isn't tripping us up. That's the real goal with decluttering, is making sure that our stuff is serving us instead of becoming an obstacle. And there are many ways that the stuff could become an obstacle. Then we're going to be more focused on what matters and will be more effective. And the stuff, whether it's because there's too much or not enough, the stuff will take its proper place and not become the primary mission. So decluttering is always going to be something that we are doing, because the stuff situation is always changing. And then the thing is, the stuff is there for people to use. And when people use stuff, it makes a mess. This is just life. If there are messes in your home, it's because people live there and they're doing things. The messes themselves are not the problem. So Proverbs says that where there are no oxen, the manger is clean, but much work comes by the strength of the ox. If you care the most about there not being a mess, if you want things to stay clean, then the most efficient, effective way to achieve that goal is to not do anything. It's to have barren. It's to get rid of life. But if you have life in your home, there will be messes. And fruitful, productive living will result in messes, and it's worth it. Not that we're going to wallow in the mess. It means when we're fruitful and productive, there's a lot of work to do. But our goal in life is not to get out of work. Turns out our goal is to work well and with a good attitude and with joy and with increase, turning a profit on what we have been given. And that is motivating, and that is a joy. It is a good thing that we can enjoy. So, because our homes are full of life, our homes are full of messes, And it's just a part of our daily duties to be dealing with the stuff. We're not doing anything wrong when there are messes in our home. We're probably doing things right. Like the best way for there to not be a homeschool mess in your house is to not homeschool. But that has priorities backwards. If your children are at home, say all day when they're 10, they should be educated. You should be educating them. If they're being educated in your home, that education process is going to mean that there are books and papers and all the stuff around your house. That is evidence of good work being done. And all we need are strategies for dealing with that process, handling the scene changes in our day. The home is a stage, and we are prop managers. The props are helpful for the action, unless they're tripping everyone up, unless it takes hours to find the prop that's needed for the next scene. But the solution doesn't have to be just a propless, lightless, everyone's in black kind of play. There's a certain style to that, but most of us are not called to that kind of life. Here are 3 decluttering strategies for busy families. No matter what you have going on, if you have multiple kids doing stuff and you're focused on growing people and being fruitful, you have a busy family. And that's actually a good thing. Being busy also is not a bad word. Strategy number 1 for just dealing with that constant flux of stuff is to designate an island of sanity and a hotspot. These are 2 different things. These are our terminology that we use in Convivial Circle, and I'm going to define it in a minute. But you are going to decide in your own home one space in your home that is your island of sanity and one space that is your hotspot. Let's talk about what that means. Your island of sanity is a horizontal surface that you keep clear. Now, this needs to be an achievable space to keep clear. If you choose your dining room table as your island of sanity, you're not going to have any sanity. You're choosing to have no sanity. Like, it's a bad decision. That's unrealistic expectations. You want to look around and say, all right, if I had this space that was always clear and ready for action, how would that change my life? How would that be helpful? For me, at our previous house, I actually had a kitchen island, which is where I came up with island of sanities, because it was literally an island. And I said, okay, there's a peninsula, there's a table, there's plenty of other horizontal space in this area. This horizontal space, we don't put things on. And if someone does just set something down, I don't have to get mad. I don't have to yell at them, but I'm going to move it off. Even if it's just over to that table that's over there or the peninsula 4 feet away. This space stays clear, and that means that it's available to work. And so that's where I would make dinner, chop vegetables. It was just ready to go. So it's not like it's never used, but it's a space where we don't let things collect. And then it's also a space where it's the first space that you go to clean. And you'll be surprised how much of a difference this makes in being able to get started with your cleaning time. We don't realize how much time we waste spinning our wheels making a decision of what to do. And so if it comes time to clean, or you could clean for 2 or 3 minutes, if you don't know exactly what you ought to do, you're not going to actually use that time to clean. You're just going to putz around or look at your phone and not actually do anything at all. Your island of sanity is where you always start cleaning. So if it's time to declutter, if it's time to clean the kitchen, if you just find yourself with a minute and there's something on the counter, that's where you start. It's just like a default, and you start building this default of taking care of a space. You're giving regular tiny doses of attention to this space, keeping it clear, keeping it functional, turning to it and, oh, I'm going to clean it. And you're doing it for yourself. You're acknowledging that it is a blessing to yourself and your work to keep this space clear. And it's not the whole kitchen. It's not every horizontal surface. It's not that there should be no clutter anywhere in the house. This is just my special little spot. And when we start tending one little spot with affection, like it has a little pet nickname. It's my island of sanity. I know, I'm going to clean my island of sanity. Now, look, it's clear. Here's my sanity back again. And we will begin growing that affection in other areas of our house. And we'll begin learning what it feels like to work out of affection and attention and engagement instead of cleaning out of stress and guilt and anger. We're shifting how we're going about taking care of things by just focusing on one small area first. And you don't really outgrow it. And there were a few times that I've tried expanding. That's okay. I mean, I've had my same island of sanity for years and years. Maybe I should stretch it out. But it turns out the island held all my sanity and I didn't have enough to go around. I couldn't spread it farther. It was enough and it worked. Because the other reality is that there does need to be a collection point. So your hot spot, and I know that different clutter people use the term hot spot differently, but your hot spot, the way I am using it, is the place that you are acknowledging is a horizontal surface that collects things. Back, still using our previous house as my example, I had the kitchen island. That was my island of sanity. The peninsula, things were set there. Kids did homework there. The mail was dropped there. Anything that came out of the oven was probably set there. It just was a go-to spot. And honestly, if someone set something on the island, I just moved it to the peninsula. I didn't have to take care of it right away. I just had to get it off the island. And it's because that's the way I wanted it to be, not because anyone was in trouble for it. Oh, I would rather that not be here. I'm going to move it here. No big deal. Often a hot spot is whatever horizontal surface is closest to the front door or whatever door you use to enter your home. There are going to be places. Maybe it is the dining room table. That's where it is at our house right now, because that's actually like the only horizontal surface practically in the public area. Besides the couches, which become clutter holders in ways that didn't happen before when we had more space and more horizontal surfaces. But look at where with your hot spot, you're not choosing where people will leave their things. You are acknowledging the reality of where people leave their things. Because honestly, I don't even think you can predict. We're currently building, I think I left that part out of the bio, but we're building a new home. My husband is doing the building himself. And I've studied that layout. We designed it ourselves. Like, I have spent a lot of time in my imagination walking through this floor plan. But I know from experience that I don't get to choose where the hot spot would be. I know there are going to be options, but people are funny and people are unpredictable. And so you have to, instead of trying to control and manage where people drop their stuff, just watch, just be a scientist, be an observer, be a journalist, and discover what their traffic patterns are and where things get dropped. And then make that a part of your plan. Instead of trying to change everybody, just change your routine. It's actually way easier to change a routine than changing all the people in your house. Turns out. So when you acknowledge that the entry table, the dining room table, the kitchen peninsula is where things are going to collect, then you make a strategy for dealing with that. And your strategy is that you will not make the goal of never having clutter there. Your hotspot is not your island of sanity. Your hotspot is the designated hotspot. It's where things go. It's part of the plan. It's part of the strategy that stuff is collecting there. And once, twice, 3 times a week, whatever, you'll take care of stuff that has collected there. And if you aren't sure where the mail is, it's probably at the hotspot. It's just a part of the plan. You can work with that instead of fighting it. We make too many fights for ourselves and with our families because we end up having standards or ideas or strategies that we've picked up from unrealistic photos. Your goal is to function yourself. Your goal is to have a functional space, and your goal is to have a functional family, not to keep your home 100% clutter-free at all times. What a sad, narrow life that would be if your life was about staying 100% clutter-free. That is thinking too small and too narrow and too boring. Second strategy for just keeping up with the use of stuff in your home is to have a EHOP. This is our family's little nickname that a lot of other families now have adopted as well. It stands for everything has a place. Everything has a place. So everyone, let's put those things in their place. So EHOP is our family's code word for tidying up. And it goes over way better with boys to have a code word that sounds like a special secret mission than to say, okay, it's time to tidy up. We're going to EHOP. And the limited time is key. EHOP is mostly mom directing the kids to do the work. Mom's participating and supervising and answering questions and directing and making sure that children are actually putting things where they belong and not just in a different wrong spot, not just moving the clutter, but actually decluttering by putting things where they belong. And then by observing and helping and pitching in and staying attentive, you will learn what things don't have homes, and you will learn what homes your children didn't know about. So you're there making sure they do what they're supposed to be doing and participating, but your main job is supervision and direction, and doing so in an upbeat, cheerful manner for a limited time. And when your children know that you're only going to be doing this for a limited time, and you actually set a timer so that they believe you, and you actually stop when the timer goes off, then you get a lot more buy-in. It might take a few times for them to trust you on that, because we think, oh, we're going to clean until it's done. But especially the children, much less you, probably don't know what done means. So if you tell the kids to just, let's clean the living room, let's clean the playroom, it doesn't actually mean until it's done. No one actually knows what done means. Probably not even you. It's until mom feels like it's good enough. And that is a discouraging, disheartening, vague goal for children. Until mom is happy. One, that means she's not happy now. And we're working until we hit the point where we have made mom happy. And that's not the terms that you want when you're working with your kids. So instead, you put that standard on the timer, which is outside of you and how you feel. It's objective and it's external to both you and the children. So no one person's feelings are in charge. And you see how much you can get done. And then you get excited when it is done, even if it's just the timer going off. And even if you didn't do it all. I'm not saying that in 10 or 15 minutes, you will have cleaned up all the messes. But I am saying you will be surprised at how much you did get done. You'll be surprised at how much work you did get out of the kids. As you build that trust that the kids are not just working until you tell them it's good enough, but there's an actual standard and you're actually paying attention and you actually care and you're being that upbeat leader of the action, One thing that helps a lot, especially, I think any age really, it's fun for everybody to see a before and after picture, especially if they are dragging their feet or they're just, having a little bit of a tude problem of their own. Take a before picture before you get started, then set the timer and everyone do an EHOP, and then take an after picture and do a little before and after, like swipe back or GIF or video or something. So it's videoing the whole 10 or 15 minutes and then play it at whatever 5x speed or whatever. So the kids see themselves like zipping all around. It's super fun. And it's rewarding to see that you were actually doing something. And that's rewarding to us as adults. It's rewarding to the children. And then that feeds the desire to do it again the next time. So it's more important to put in the small, cheerful repetitions than to get the job, quote unquote, done. The other important piece to EHOP is that you let the messes be in your house until it's EHOP time. So for us, EHOP has usually been about 5:00. And until that time, kids might be doing puzzles. They might be doing crafting. They might leave their craft on the table and go do something else. And I'm not horizontal space policeman where I'm going to be telling them to clean up because I feel like I can't handle life. It happens, doesn't it? So a part of the EHOP strategy is that the stuff will be put away at EHOP time. Until that time, the kids can actually do the projects and even leave stuff out. There will come a time for it to be put away, and now is not the time. So mom's not allowed to lose it and make them put it away just because she can't handle life. It's part of the deal. You don't have to panic every time you see something out. You can get on with your own stuff. Read a book, do something else. Don't let the stuff being out bother you, because there is a time where it will be taken care of. So you can just let it wait. Be patient. Remember that your goal is not to have your home be 100% clutter-free or mess-free all the time. Your goal is to have a productive, fruitful, cheerful, thriving family. And that means that at times there is going to be stuff out. The stuff's not the problem. We just have to have strategies for managing the stuff. And EHOP, I think, is one of the best strategies for managing that just churn of stuff, whether it's stacks of books, stacks of paper, colored pencils, crayons, who knows what the kids are getting out. It's fine. They need time to be working on stuff and to have stuff out. And so we don't have to fight about it. It doesn't have to stress anyone out. We can just be functioning. All right, third and final strategy is the transformation 10. So this is almost like EHOP, but just for mom, and it fits in anywhere. We tend to think of decluttering as a project that we can complete. It's a level up. First we declutter, then we get to achieve the next level of organization. When in reality, decluttering is just an ongoing maintenance thing. Decluttering is just like laundry. It's never done. As soon as you finish one load, the next load is in the works. It's the exact same with decluttering. So our goal is never to get it finished or complete or achieve some kind of status with our decluttering efforts. It's just managing the stuff of real life. And so we can actually work in decluttering and making progress if things are chaotic with 10 minutes most days. And this is the transformation 10. And yes, I do mean actually setting a timer. Set a timer. A timer like this kind where you can see it count down and it's visible and it's probably even making noise ticking away. That sense of a deadline that's just ticking away, that's coming right up, is super motivating. we can put a little short burst of energy and attention and focus on a project if we know that it's just 10 minutes. Like, I can do this. It's no big deal. I can stay focused for 10 minutes. And you'll be surprised at the kind of progress that you can make in 10 minutes. Not just a vague, ish, or where it feels like 10 minutes. No, an actual timer, an actual limited amount of space, like this one area of my room, this one chunk of counter, this one side table, this bathroom, 10 minutes. See how much you can get done. It's probably more than you think. We use this strategy all the time in Convivial Circle, and pretty much everyone says that they get so much more done using a timer for 10 minutes than they ever thought possible. We build up jobs in our head to be way more than they are. And then we feel overwhelmed and we don't work very effectively. And so we stay overwhelmed. But actually, 10 focused minutes can accomplish a lot. So try it. And you focus on a single area. And what you're doing is just putting things away and giving things home. If there's extra time, wipe down surfaces or whatever. But your focus is just putting things away. And then as you start to do this more, you'll realize what items are just sitting out. And maybe they'd become invisible to you because they've been sitting there for so long. And you can start thinking like, is this its home? And some things do just belong sitting on surfaces. Like if you have framed photos on the top of the piano, like that's actually where they belong. They aren't clutter. That's where they belong. So as you're putting things away, you're like, this is where this item has been. Is it its home? It doesn't have to be ideal. You just have to acknowledge that it's its home, or you give it a different home. And it doesn't have to be the perfect home out of the gates. You can always iterate. You can always change things up and move things around and give things new homes. That's a part of the process. We're figuring things out, and the way that we use our space in our home changes. It's not like you can just set things up totally organized, totally decluttered, and then that's going to work for forever. That's not the way family life works. What we need our space for changes. And so where we keep things is going to be ever evolving and adapting, and that's normal and that's good. Nothing is wrong or broken. That's actually what it looks like to manage your resources. It's a constant iterative process. It's being active and engaged in your life, with your space, with your stuff. So the Transformation 10, you will be amazed at the kind of progress that can happen in just 10 minutes. It really does add up. And I know we have a lot of our Transformation 10 experienced people in the chat, and you all can testify that it works. The progress really does happen. Okay, good questions rolling in. Thank you, Nadia. We use the 10-minute transformation all the time in Convivial Circle, but our best and most effective time for using it is with the Declutter Challenge, which we are doing in February. And if you can believe it, February starts this week. February is Saturday. And in the Declutter Challenge, we have a challenge checklist that has 20 spots. February is 28 days. So we're not talking about every day. There's catch up in there. And you can always do more than one in a day. But for the month of February, 20 10-minute decluttering sessions. And then you get a prize. Bookmarks. I have all kinds of stickers. So it's a fun little packet. And one of the brand new things, I now have this Repent, Rejoice, Repeat with a logo as a magnet. And that's going to go in the Declutter Challenge prize pack. So members of Convivial Circle, as we work through the Declutter Challenge, when you finish the Declutter Challenge, there's a survey, a little report card, and everyone who fills that out gets a prize pack in the mail. Magnets, stickers, bookmarks, you get a goodie bag in the mail for completing the challenge. It's super fun. Just a little acknowledgement and recognition that it's good work you are doing and it counts, it's worth it. And if you do it 20 times over the course of a month, you will see significant progress. Your husband will notice. It happens every time. It is totally worth it. Then we have live support, there's chat, there's sharing and accountability. We have a weekly workshop like this, but only 20 minutes, all on decluttering every week in Convivial Circle. So we really want to help as many women as possible get as much traction as possible being responsible, effective managers of their homes. And that does include how we take care of stuff. It's everyone in the community's favorite month. We really get into it. So we would love to have you join us. If for our members who are here today, share what you plan to focus on in the month of February as we focus on decluttering, or if you can remember previous years. I think this is like our 6th declutter challenge. Like what you remember learning or seeing or noticing in previous years. Okay, now for the Q&A. Jessica asks, how do you declutter clothing? We have just so much laundry. I don't know how much is too much, but I cannot keep up. This is where I think it's easy or it's typical for your organization or decluttering gurus to actually answer you with a specific. That's unrealistic and just not real. I can't make up that answer for you, but I can help you work it out. You have to take a few things into consideration. You have to come up with a strategy, and you can try a strategy and then have it not work and try a different strategy. You don't have to wait until you have the strategy that you are sure will work before trying. Iterate. This is why we say iterate. Just try something and experiment. So here's what to think about. Do the clothes fit in the drawers that you have? Is there enough drawer space? Are people's closets and drawers full of things they don't actually wear? Watch your kids maybe for their habits. Do they put everything in the wash? There were times where clean clothes went into the laundry hamper. I know it. And so we had to have a strategy. If a shirt falls out of your drawer while you're pulling out the shirt that you want, and then it lands on the floor, and then it lives there for a day, and then you're going around cleaning up, you can't just toss that in the hamper. It takes coaching, it takes parenting, it takes observing, it takes attention, and it takes giving them new strategies. Here, you know what? This chair that's in your bedroom, things that you could wear again that don't need to be washed, this is actually our strategy. You can put it there. Or this bin, or actually having a place to put things that they could wear again could solve that problem. Then there's looking at the laundry side of it. Do I need to be more realistic and just change my expectations and my attitude about how much laundry I have to do? Is it 2 loads a day? Honestly, it depends on how many kids you have, but that's not abnormal. That's what I was doing with 5 kids when everyone was like 14 and under. After that, we started doing more. Everyone is in charge of their own laundry and has a laundry day. However many loads they need to do, they've got a laundry day and they have to take care of it. But when I was managing all of it, 2 loads a day was pretty normal. Same, that's what I remember as a kid too. I have the oldest of 7. So 2 or 3 loads a day was normal. And so sometimes it's just our expectations and we think something is unreasonable when it really isn't. It does actually take time. Mary Margaret's asking about the paper stack and Jane is asking about paper clutter. Then they need a home. It's not wrong to keep all those things, but it means that you have to give it a home where they fit. It is stuff that does take up space. So you can't both keep everything and have clear spaces. You have to pick. You have to make hard choices. It's not wrong to keep everything, but you have to ask yourself if it's worth the space. And so I do keep, at points it's been a file folder, and then sometimes it's been like a shoebox or a second shoebox. But then the shoebox needs a home. And so, okay, I want to keep this card. I'm going to keep a shoebox of cards. And then when I get a card in the mail and it just says, thank you for bringing a meal, I don't need to keep that. And you start, as you realize that you do have to make a trade-off between keeping and space, you begin to make judgment calls for yourself, which is the way it should work. Maybe you want to have 4 or 5 shoe boxes on a shelf, and you like having those memories, and you will look through them again. Is it just it's just easier to not throw it away because throwing it away makes you feel bad. If it makes you feel bad, why? Is the person who sent the card ever going to know whether or not it went into the trash can or into a box? Would it matter to that person which can it went into? One that is in the landfill or one that is just sitting on your shelf for the rest of your life with no one seeing it? Does it really matter? But if it's something like, no, I can imagine myself being old and like just going through these and remembering the people and the time, and some letters are definitely worth keeping, for sure. But it's all the trade-off. And you just have to actually acknowledge reality. That's a big part of it, is just deal with all the facets of reality and put away false guilt and unrealistic expectations. You can't have everything. Everything is trade-offs. It's not wrong that it's trade-offs. You just have to make the trade-offs that are in front of you. It's not wrong or bad. This is reality. Let's see. How do I join the challenge? The Declutter Challenge, you go right here to convivialcircle.com and click enroll. And then when you enroll, you can use the discount code Declutter25 to get 20% off your subscription. Leanna says, I tried to do EHOP and my husband happened to be home and didn't want to stop cleaning after the timer went off. Now what do I do? Honor him and keep cleaning, or put my foot down and stop? All right, usually like 99% of the time, EHOP is me and my kids before my husband is home. So in that case, stopping is about me being truthful and accountable to what I tell my children, right? Because I might say we're just going to do this much, but let's keep going. Let's keep going. If your husband is there, then he's the leader, not you. So yes, you just honor him and you keep going, and you keep you set the example that you want the kids to follow. When you are in charge, giving a specific time-bound expectation helps bring your kids on board for your little time. If your husband is around and participating, I would let him set the expectations at the beginning too, because you don't want to be telling the kids 2 different things. And if that happens, then you can apologize to your children for setting a double standard and say, sorry, we're going to go with that plan. I shouldn't have set rules when I wasn't in charge, when I wasn't the leader. Be careful in how you phrase things. The stopping at 10 minutes thing is a helpful mind game for yourself, because especially we as women tend to overestimate things we don't want to do and get overwhelmed without ever starting. And then we also underestimate how long things will take that we do want to do. So the timer helps us deal with reality. And I think by default, men are more aware of reality and better at working with reality. So it's like it's a training ground for us, and it's a piece of accountability to help us bring our kids on board. But if your husband wants everyone to keep working together, run with it. Do it. Yes, the Declutter Challenge really is. There's a lot of momentum and energy. And I don't know how an online community gives energy, but it does. Ladies, it's funny, but just knowing that in other places in the world, other ladies are doing this too, and you can share your small win. Hey, I spent 10 minutes and did all this stuff, and there are ladies there who appreciate. Okay, how do you handle when some kids tidy quickly and others slowly? It depends on what kind of a problem it is. People are different, right? We aren't trying to get to the point where everyone is the same. We are trying to train each particular child to grow and thrive. So again, there isn't one right answer. And we need to make sure that our goal isn't that everyone does an equal amount of work, because that's just not reality. It is not reality that everyone has a fair share. We should all be participating to the best of our ability. And so that's what we're trying to get everyone to do. And the best of everyone's ability in a family where everyone are different ages and different personalities and all that is going to be different. And so we are trying to help everyone do more and do better gradually by persistent repetition and coaching. And we're also helping our children learn how to deal with the reality that maybe they have more energy, more attention, more ability, and so they are actually called to do more. To whom much is given, much is required. This is the way God made the world. This is actual reality. We aren't communists and we're not socialists, so we don't believe that everyone should be doing an equal amount, the same. We don't believe everyone should be the same. And the 10-15 minutes of everyone working together is great training ground for real life. Siblings are there for learning how to deal with the real world, not for making an ideal society. The kids are there not for us to create a utopia. They're there for all of us to learn how to deal with people. Do you have an island of sanity in every room? I do not. I did try that for a while and it didn't work as well as having one. If you do successfully have one for a while and it's really working for you and you want to try it in another room, try it. There isn't one right way to do things, right? We're here to try and experiment and iterate and be engaged and interested in our work. I found that my island of sanity in the kitchen worked really well because it really was a huge help to have a space that was available to work. In the living room, for example, there isn't the same need for a clear space, so it just felt fake to me. And again, we just did EHOP there, mostly in the living room, dining room, those kind of spaces. I would put away my things while other people are EHOPing. But then usually the kids are all starting with the easiest things first. And then we go until the timer goes off, finding harder and harder things the more time goes on. But pretty much most people, if you have kids doing EHOP, then they're competing for taking the easy things first, which is one way you get good work out of them. It's part of the strategy. Other spaces like an office or a desk or the bedroom, but it never really felt the same as the island of sanity in the kitchen, honestly. A key part of making that work is it's a space that you're in a lot and you actually need a functional space. So you're tending this one little spot. Diane says, for the island of sanity idea, I have a friend who recommends 3 areas, not one in every room, but 3 areas that make a difference for her mental state. I could see that. Right now, I don't have a space that's like my reading stuff space, but at one point I did. It was just my area. So if I was putting my own things away, I was probably tidying that area first. Milanka is having her kids do their own laundry. Yay. Katie says, sometimes when we have a problem with people cleaning at a different speed, I have them clean in a different area, but for the same amount of time. Thank you so much for joining me for this workshop. And I would love to see you join for our Declutter Challenge in February. we really do get a lot done, and we help one another brainstorm questions like the cards and all of that. When you have those kind of questions and ask in the community, it is so helpful because you just get those more creative, out of the box ideas from different perspectives, and then piece together different ideas and come up with ideas you never would have just thinking about it yourself. So once you get started decluttering, there is a lot of problem solving involved. And that is one thing that our community is so good at, is helping brainstorm problem solving ideas with a focus not on fixing everything perfectly or having tight control over our lives that we aren't supposed to have, but having self-control, cheerful attitudes, and managing our own resources and our own situation to the glory of God. That's what we are all about, and we would love to have you join us in Convivial Circle. You can go to convivialcircle.com, and we will see you in there.